Did you know that 5 states, Oregon, California, Vermont, Colorado, Washington, and the District of Columbia, have all legalized physician's assisted suicide in their state? Physician's assisted suicide is the act of allowing a physician to assist in the death of a terminally ill patient. Philosophers have examined the debate of the morality of this for years, whether killing and letting die are the same or different. This paper will take a look at two philosophers, Rachel, who believes that killing and letting die are morally permissible, and Rachel, who believes in Tolleson, who views that it is always wrong to take a patient's life. It is always morally wrong to kill under any circumstances. Rachel, the first philosopher looked at will be Rachel, who believes that killing and letting die are morally equivalent. Rachel looks first at the AMA's policy. The AMA believes that letting die is morally permissible, so passive euthanasia is permissible. This involves the act of removing a patient off treatment or allowing the natural courses of life to take the patient's life. This can often result in suffering because the patient must live through their whole disease. But the AMA believes that active euthanasia is wrong, which is allowing a doctor to give a pill or an injection that can end the patient's life. The AMA thinks it is morally wrong for active euthanasia, but morally right for passive euthanasia. This assists in Rachel's argument because this relates to Rachel because according to the AMA, killing is worse than letting die. The AMA positions its argument on the doctrine of doing versus allowing, which Rachel believes is false because Rachel believes that killing is the same or no worse than letting die. Rachel first looked at the humane argument. The humane argument says it is always wrong to allow a person to needlessly suffer. Active euthanasia ends a person from needlessly suffering by letting the patient assist in a physician's assistant's death by allowing them to end their life. But passive euthanasia results in the patient allows for the patient to have needless suffering. So therefore, Rachel believes that active euthanasia is morally preferable to passive euthanasia because active euthanasia allows the patient to not have to end needlessly suffering. Rachel uses an example of a throat cancer patient who is in pain and wants to die. Rachel believes that patient should be allowed to die. Rachel also looks at the irrelevant ground doctrine. Rachel claims that the doctrine of doing and allowing provides guidance that can lead people in the wrong moral direction. And this relates to the irrelevance ground theory because all principles should lead someone in the right direction. The doctrine of doing and allowing can lead people in the wrong direction. Therefore, the ANA is questionable and provides wrong moral guidance. Rachel uses the example of the Down syndrome baby. So a family has a child born with Down syndrome, and the baby has an obstruction, and that obstruction could easily be fixed with surgery. But the family decided that they did not want the baby. And the doctrine of doing and allowing allows the family to focus on the obstruction versus the baby's death or the right of the baby to die without suffering. So because the patient is allowed to focus on the obstruction versus the death is of the baby is painless and the baby suffers. But if the family focused more on the death of the patient's of their baby's right to die, then they could use active euthanasia, which would allow no suffering to their death. So, according to the the death doctrine of doing and allowing is false wrong because the family should be able to choose a death that allows the baby to have a less painful death. So Rachel also uses the equivalency theory, which is that killing and letting die are the same. Rachel uses this example of Smith and Jones. Smith is promised a large sum of money if his baby cousin dies. So Smith sneaks into the bathroom one night and drowns his baby cousin. Smith actively kills the baby. Jones is also promised a large sum of money if the baby dies. So Jones goes to sneak into the bathroom to drown the baby, but the baby slips and falls and baby dies on its own. Jones allows the patient to die. Allows the baby to die. So according to Rachel, this killing and letting die are the same. So active and passive euthanasia are the same. So they are both morally permissible. This means that the AMA's policy should be revised. So the AMA takes a look at doctrine of doing allowing, which is also false in this case, so they both need to be revised. So the traditional argument is also brought up by Rachel, and the traditional argument states that killing is an action, but letting die is not. But Rachel says this is false because by letting a patient die, you are doing nothing, and by doing nothing, you are doing action. So therefore, killing and letting die are morally equivalent. So in general, Rachel uses many different examples throughout the argument to prove the doctrine of doing and allowing is false and that the AMA needs to be changed. He does this by proving that killing is no worse than letting someone die, so passive and active euthanasia are morally equivalent. So the next philosopher we'll look at is Tolleson, who takes a completely different view. Tolleson believes it is wrong to intend the death of a human being in any circumstances. Tolleson first takes a look at the difference between abortion and euthanasia. Abortion and euthanasia are different, and this is seen on three different policies. Fairness. Fairness in abortion is seen unfair because it is wrong for the baby and the woman, but euthanasia is fair because the patient wants to die and the patient will be getting what they want. And emotions in abortion are different because in euthanasia, again, the patient wants to die, and in abortion they don't know. And they also take a look that abortion is less questionable than euthanasia because euthanasia has many cases of whether it is acting or omission. And so there are stronger feelings associated with abortion because abortion has less questionable cases than euthanasia. So they take a look at Tolleson takes a look at the Tony Blind case. Tony Blind is trampled in a soccer riot in Britain. In Britain, they believe it is wrong to cause someone death. So Britain removes the feeding tube through omission that would keep Tony Blind alive. But because they omit the feeding tube, it is an action that leads to death. Rachel believes that, or Tolleson disagrees with the doing of action omission distinction because it does not help in determining if euthanasia is morally permissible or not, because it seems basic care is a feeding tube, so there is an action there. So Tolleson looks at the moral principle. His moral principle is he believes that whether or not it is acting or omission, it is always wrong to intentionally kill. It is always wrong to intend the death of a human being, even if they are suffering or in pain. So why are human beings valuable? Why should we value their life like this? And Tolleson says that human beings are bundles of potential goods. The human beings can love, they want to love better, they want to live better, they want more knowledge, and we strive to be better people, and we desire basic goods. And so basic goods are our main reason for acting. So to do damage to basic goods goes against one's health. So it is always intentionally wrong to kill based on these basic goods. So Tolleson also takes a look at problems with dualism. So dualism is, according to dualism, your body is a tool to achieve pleasure. And according to Rachel or Tolleson, this causes detachment from one's own body, distance from their loved ones, and it causes them to be skeptical about their knowledge because it causes them to question whether their body is doing its job. So Tolleson sees dualism as false because your body and your mind, according to Tolleson, are the same. And so that your body is not just a tool, our mind and bodies are integrated. So even if our mental life may come and go at different times, as long as we have our bodies, we are functioning. So this relates to how can a person on a ventilator or person who is dying live a good life. And according to Tolleson, since we're bundles of potential goods, even in a deliberate on a in a suffering life or in a hospital bed, we could still have friends, we could still be sociable, we could still pursue our knowledge. But even if we have lost our mental function, according to Tolleson, we are still incomplete bundles of potential goods. And as long as we are human, we still have a right to live because we have a capacity for goods. So Tolleson in general believes that killing and letting die are both morally wrong because humans have the right to pursue those basic goods. So Oregon has said physicians assisted suicide since 1997, and since then 1,200 people or patients have died from injection methods or the use of a pill that led to their death. So I use this visual aid to show that here in 2016, 69% of Americans believed or supported euthanasia. So I say this because it is seen that an AMA is still saying that it is wrong for euthanasia. It is wrong for active euthanasia to be allowed in America. But according to Americans, 69% of us, or more than half of us, believe that it should be legalized. So it is up to us as citizens of the United States to decide on whether we should involve our lawmakers and get them to help us in the legalization of physicians assisted suicide.